אם אשכחך ירושלים, תשכח, תשכח, תשכח ימיני. אם אשכחך ירושלים, תשכח, תשכח, תשכח ימיני.
Tisha Bav this year comes out on a Thursday. Does that change anything in terms of our morning practices? So in order to answer this question, we have to go back a step and ask ourselves, are we mourning for the first temple, the second temple, both? It happens to be that the Shulchan Aruch has to take a stand on this issue for a very simple reason. In the first temple, the walls of Yerushalayim were breached on the 9th, and in the second temple on the 17th. And therefore the Shulchan Aruch says we have to take a stand because we can't fast on both. And therefore he says in Simon Tav Kuf Mem Tet Seif Bet, Af Agab the Kir Bekra, the Tisha Lachodesh Ufka'a here, even though during the first Beis Hamikdash it says in Yirmiyahu that on the 9th the walls were breached, and Mitanim Be Tet Bo Ela Be Yud Zayin. Yud Zayin B'Tammuz is the fast day and not the 9th of Tammuz. Mipnei she'af al pshish b'Yishana ufka'a b'Tet Bo, kivan shebashniya ufka'a b'Yud Zayin Bo, tiknu li'tanot b'Yud Zayin Bo, mishum shechorban bayit sheni chamir lan. The takana, the enactment of our sages, was to fast on the 17th of Tammuz and not on the 9th of Tammuz, because the second Beis Hamikdash is more chamor for us. Simply put, we haven't had a third, but for the first, there was a second, and therefore it's less in its severity, and therefore we patterned our morning practices based on the second Beis Hamikdash and not the first. And indeed, this is not just true for the onset of these 3 weeks, but for the end of these 3 weeks, namely Tisha Bav. Tisha Bav is the day that the second Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. But what happened in the first Beis Hamikdash? The Gemara in Tainis, Daf Kafted Amud Aleph, says that on the 7th they came into Har HaBayit and they started to ruin things. And on the 9th, towards evening, they lit the match and it basically burnt most of the 10th, namely a little bit on the 9th, but mostly on the 10th. And therefore Rabbi Yochanan said, if I was alive then, I would have made the fast on the 10th, because that's Rubo Shel Heichal Bo Nisraf. That was the day that most of the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, in the first Beis Hamikdash, not the second. The Gemara then asks, what about the second? We have no Psukim, we have no Nevi'im, and it says it has to be that day. Suffice it to say, we fast on the 17th of Tammuz and on the 9th of Av, because we pattern our practices based on what happened in the second Beis Hamikdash. And therefore, it's no surprise that the Tosefta in Tainis says, Avar Tisha Bav mutarin bakol. The minute Tisha B'Av is over, morning practices are over too. In Maseches Tainis, Daf Kaftet Amud Bet, it talks about not being able to shave and to launder, etc., ad hata'anit, until the fast. And indeed, the Talmud Yerushalmi says that Rabbi Yitzchak ben Elazar, when Tisha Bav was over, Nafik HaMachris, he would put out a general calling and said, my barbershop is open. So therefore, the Gra says, if you have any morning practices on the 10th, it is only a minhag, a chumrah. Aval medina, mutar miyad af dvarim shasur b'shabbat shechal b'tisha b'tocha. The minute the fast is over, you're allowed to do everything. Having said that, we have a minhag. And what is our minhag? Our minhag is that even on the 10th of Av, we maintain certain morning practices simply because of the first Beis Hamikdash, even though it is not Medina, as the Gra said, it is a minhag. And what is the minhag? Here we get the 4 points of view. The Maharshal says the minhag is to do everything that you didn't do in the 9 days. So Tisha B'Av is over. You don't launder, you don't take a shower for pleasure, you do not shave, you do not take a haircut, and 9 days continues till the 10th. And that's basically the way that many Achronim paskin. The Bach paskin this way, the Mamar Mordechai paskin this way, the Magen Avram paskin this way, and the Mishnah Brura paskin this way. Having said that, there's a second point of view, and that is the Maharil. The Maharil says that the only practice is not to eat meat and drink wine after Tisha B'Av. All the rest is allowed. Why? Not so much because of the 3 weeks and the 9 days and the whole morning practices, but rather for a totally different reason. It's a fast that has to do with tshuva, We're supposed to repent, not just remember the past. And on a day that you fasted for tshuva, you do not eat meat and drink wine after that day. This would apply to all fast days for tshuva, not just for Tisha B'Av, but Tisha B'Av is one of the many examples. The Shulchan Aruch agrees with this, but for a different reason. He says that because the 10th was the day that the first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, actually the majority of it was destroyed, don't eat meat and don't drink wine. That's the only practice that's left on the 10th. So both the Maharil and the Shulchan Aruch agree that the only practice is meat and wine. Having said that, for two different reasons. The Maharil says because we just fasted a day of Tshuva, and the Shulchan Aruch says because on that 10th, namely after Tisha B'Av, from our perspective, Thursday night into Friday, was the day that most of this first Beis Hamikdash was destroyed. And that's the way the Mamar Mordechai paskins, that he says that since the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah only talk about meat and wine, the Ramah never said about the Shulchan Aruch that you should not do other things. All he said was that the 10th continues till Chatzot, till midday, not all day. Therefore, he says, Mistimat Divrei Maran, or Moreno Rav Moshe, because the Ramah and the Shulchan Aruch agree, it is restricted to meat and wine. And not surprising, we have a fourth point of view that nothing retains. And the Birkei Yosef brings us the name of the Pri Chadash that says, there's no reason to restrict anything after the 9th. So, to sum up, Yud Zayin B'Tammuz and Tisha B'Av is patterned based on the second Beis Hamikdash. That's the halacha mid'Rabbanan that we keep. There's a minhag to remember the first Beis Hamikdash by extending it a bit to the 10th. How much do you extend? All the 9 days practices? Just meat and wine or nothing? We saw the 4 points of view. Well, how does this reflect and change this year? This year, it's Thursday into Friday. Does that make a difference in terms of this minhag? More about that next time.